So the last time we spoke in this venue, Brother William, you were preparing for a trip overseas to Gabon, and you were talking about a lot of the things you were talking about on our last conversation on the podcast was the dreams that you've had for yourself, discovering yourself more, community, the things we've talked about a lot. What the people want to know is what was this trip like, and like what are some of the things that like stick out to you now after, I mean, it's been what, 4 months since
Hmm.
that you've discovered about yourself that like stick out from that trip today?
Okay. What the people want to know?
What do
They want to know.
the
I'm
people
like,
want to
but do
know?
they? Who wants to know?
They all want
People.
to know.
uh, I mean, man, like it was life changing. I just like that's the only word that I can really or set of words that I could use to describe the experience.
Yeah.
Um, I was just on my way into I just sitting on the plane, the excitement of like what's it gonna be like. I was nervous.
Mm.
Like, when I show up, will people accept me? Will they be as excited to see me as I'm as excited to see them? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe there's other African Americans or folks coming from the African diaspora that can like relate to this, but Korean and I talk about a lot, like, when our ancestors were stolen, did anybody come to look for us?
Mm.
Um, and did they leave a light on for us? A light, quote unquote, on for
Wow.
us, waiting for us to come home to return. So
Wow.
these are all the things that are coming up in my mind and in my heart. And so, when I got there, um, at the beginning, it was like walking through any immigration area. So,
Mm.
so
Yeah.
if you ever flown into anywhere, it's
Yeah.
like long lines and like it's at nighttime and I'm tired and I'm like, man, is this what it's gonna be like?
It was supposed to be glorious with like
Exactly.
music.
People were supposed to be playing music for me and like lots of hugs and welcome home. Uh, but it was like, why are you here and how long are you staying?
Right. Fill out this card. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And and then I get there and the shaman of the an elder of the village that I come from, the tribe that I come from, the Songo tribe, his name is Mugunda, and he happened to be on the same flight, second half of my flight as I was on.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so when I got there, we saw each other right away, and he hugged me and he was excited, and then he took me to the car. Because I don't speak French or anything. I don't speak the language, nothing. So I'm just like, I'm about to be in trouble here, you know. Um, but immediately, like, the universe, God, something other than myself, something greater than myself,
Hmm.
like started organizing all of the spaces where I was most nervous to make it as easy as possible.
Hmm.
And so, we stayed in a hotel the first 2 days and I got to swim in
Hmm.
the oceans of Gabon and, play in the dirt that my ancestors played in and,
Wow.
just played a little bit
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
before stepping into the village itself. And so from there, we were
So
in Libreville. Yep, go ahead.
so just like you had space to take it all in before you kind of dove into that experience of, all right,
Exactly.
now it's time to
Yeah,
do some searching.
exactly.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so I ended up going to, so we get on into a bus. It's like more like a van, but like bus like, it's
As you do. Yep.
15, 16 passenger. And we drive 3 hours south.
Wow.
To, uh, the village is called Magunda's Village.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yep, named after the shaman.
Wow.
And so we drove out there and it was great, just watching and looking at, all of the different sceneries, all the different ways in which people are living.
Hmm.
city life as opposed to rural life. And like in some ways it's the same, and in some ways it's different, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
We drove through lots of checkpoints, you know what I'm saying? So every
Yeah.
city you got to go through a checkpoint. They're checking, and you know, it can be dangerous. They can snatch people out of the car, all that kind of,
Whoa.
but you know.
Do you know generally what they're looking for or who they're looking for in those checkpoints?
No, I mean the way people described it is money. You
Yeah.
know, it's like
Yeah.
there's opportunities when you see a bunch of Americans and things like that. It's like, can you mess up on something enough so that I can make you give me money so to let you go, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like those kind of checkpoints.
Yeah.
So anybody that's been to or it's from, you know, countries where they have a lot of like military esque types of ways of being with people,
Yeah.
they'll know what I'm talking about for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, but I was determined not to let nothing like mess me up. I was like, I didn't come here to community organize. I came here to come see my people. So I closed my eyes
Yeah.
to all of it, for better, for worse.
Which for you must have actually been a had to have been a really intentional effort because I've been on a couple of trips with you, um, and I know that your mind is always like when we're in travel mode, especially you're quiet and you're taking it all in and like assessing almost like the injustices that you see.
Yep,
So to shut that down so that you could be singularly focused on your own journey had to have been a pretty, intentional effort
yep.
to not engage in that normal pattern that your mind goes through.
Yeah, and you know, it's not to say that it didn't go through those. It just is to say that like I was like, nope, not
Yeah,
gonna do that.
we're not going to engage with it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So yeah, so then we get to the village, and I get out, and there's all these people that look like me,
Mm,
and you know, they, you know, walking up, and we start introducing ourselves to each other, and people started hugging me, and but no one really knew except for who I refer to as Papa Magunda. No one else really like knew who I was or why I was there.
okay.
So a lot of what they do in the village itself is they do training,
Mm,
provided training for like a plant medicine called Iboga.
okay.
So a lot of people come to the village for that.
Yeah.
I'm the second, Sakura being the first. I'm the second person to come for the purposes of like finding my tribe.
Oh, so that's not the typical way that they operate. It's typically Iboga, which Coco, who William just referenced Sakuria, has been on the podcast a couple of times as Coco
Mhm.
the herbalist. Go check those out if you want to hear her story and experience with this same journey. Well, her own journey to
Mhm.
Gabon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's like, you know, I'm there, and other people have, you know, paid all this money to get this training,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm gonna have the experience of Iboga. What I'm really there to do, though, is to hold in my arms the people from my tribe that
Mm.
I've stolen from, my ancestors were stolen from, and in some ways to like complete what I believe was their wishes, which is that we'd come back,
Mm.
and that we'd find our way back, and that each generation found a way to survive so that one of their generations would make it back home.
Yes.
I believe that, I know that to be true, you know.
That's you've had this deep longing, and we talked about this the first time on the podcast of about belonging.
Mhm.
One of the consistent things that you and I have talked about since I've met you. And when you talk about belonging, it's always this wonder. You were just kind of, I don't know, you just didn't, you knew you belonged somewhere with a people and you were, and not having that, having discovered that or what that meant has been your search since I've known you. And so you land in this place that is your tribe.
Yeah.
Wait, did you go actually? Did you go in to this trip knowing that?
Yes, but I just found out. So So Sakura and I both know that we come from the same tribe,
Yes.
which is the Fang tribe. But I also have three other tribes that my male, lineage like came from, and
Yeah.
so one of them is the Ateke tribe, the other is the Koda, and then the last is the Mitsongo tribe,
Mm.
and the Mitsongo tribe is the tribe um that the village is in.
Mm.
So I found that out like it was like Sakura came back. I found out where I came from. She was like checking in and out, and they kept saying Mitsoko, Buiti, and she was like, "Is this the same thing?" And she asked, and then he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Yep, I'm going."
That's so wild.
Yeah, so then that's when we decided to make it happen so that I could go.
Yeah. All right, so you're there and people are there for Iboga. You're there, you're going to experience that too, but you're there and you're seeing your people.
Yep.
What was the process then of integrating in, having conversations, doing fire talk? Like what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so the first night we had what was called a pre-ceremony,
Mm.
where the tribe was like welcoming all of us in to the space,
Mm.
and also introducing us to the spirits of the village, of the tribe. And so there's like all this dancing. Like I said, there's a plant medicine aboga that we're taking, and it's just like, you know, the only way I can describe it, some of y'all, if you follow me on Instagram, you can see some of the pictures of some of the dancing and things like that.
Yes.
And you know, it looks a lot like, Pentecostal dancing. It looks a lot like how African Americans particularly have carried themselves in church, but it also looks like when you go to uh uh carnival in some places. It looks like when you go to Juvet in St. Lucia or in all these different kinds of places. It looks like the dancing that you would see when black people are doing their ceremonial things.
Mm.
It was just like, yeah, because we never lost it. We actually always held on to those things.
Yes. Like just the free expression of the way that you dance. It seems
Exactly.
consistent across these cultures.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's
so
neat.
it was like just like felt like home in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, just before that too, Papa Magunda, he was telling some of the folks that I was sitting down, he's speaking in French. And I think in a little bit in like Bwiti or some other language
Yeah.
to some of the folks. And I can tell that he's telling them where I came from and why I'm there.
Mm.
And like the look that they gave me was like really, like you made it here. Like
Wow.
it was like this really intense kind of experience.
Oh,
uh,
that's wild.
and so they were relating to me in a way that like people noticed around like inviting me in deeper ways.
When you noticed that they noticed you, was there any part of you that was nervous about being welcomed?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, my whole trip was like, so what you need to know is like iboga is something. It's like a plant medicine. It does like three different things. So I think Coco has talked about this in terms of like the different ways in which it works.
Mm.
One of the things that it does is it shows you how your brain works, and so it like it brings up all the things that you're like suffering in.
Mm.
So in some ways, I started getting really paranoid about whether or not I was really accepted here. Because
Wow.
like, and it was like the medicine trying to show me this is what you do to yourself all the time. It's like you'll like kill yourself trying to belong to all these different places when it's just like everybody wants you around, man. And like not only that, but you just gotta want yourself around. Like you
Uh,
gotta want you. Like everybody else is engaging with you, and you'll just make up things. You'll make up reasons on why people,
don't
why you
accept you.
think people don't want to engage with you or accept
Yeah.
you, right? So
Yeah.
all of that was happening like the entire time,
Wow.
and so it's like I was like nervous and like wanted to be close, but then didn't know how to be close. And there's like all these different kinds of things that were coming up. And, you know, my brothers and sisters there, they kept reaching for me. I
Wow.
kept leaning in. They taught me to dance. I learned how to dance. They were teaching me all kinds of things about plants.
Yeah. And you talk about these nerves around being welcome, and then within the experience of taking the plant medicine, it's like being reiterated to you. Yeah, you do this all the time. Did you have conversations with Papa Magunda
Mm-hmm.
about that, about what was going on for you, or was this kind of like a personal journey that you were trying to figure out on your own? Was there some kind of guidance, or was it really just your own
Yeah,
effort?
so there was a lot of guidance, and I wish I had been more honest about it.
Yeah.
It's like so much of it for me was like wanting to be accepted. So part of what I learned about being accepted is to be exceptional, you know?
Wow.
So like trying to hold it all, like I would have been more upfront and honest. But there were these moments when I finally just was just like, I can't do it anymore, you know? So and that those are the moments when I had like the most profound experiences of love and compassion and like, yes, you can.
Yeah, because I love that phrase that you just used, being exceptional, which leaves out the possibility for you being vulnerable,
Hmm.
which then would invite compassion, right?
Hmm.
Because if you're being exceptional, you're almost untouchable. You're like, I'm putting my best self out there, and people are
Hmm.
like, all right, you got some guards up.
Hmm.
People who are intuitive, people who aren't intuitive are probably are either intimidated or they don't know how to relate to someone who's exceptional.
Hmm.
So when you start putting yourself out there and you're like, no, this is what I'm going through, and it's all these things. That's when people are most able to love you and show you compassion. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing, man. Um,
it is. Well, especially I would imagine coming from your experience of life, where especially you've occupied a lot of majority white spaces, and you've had to sort of you felt this need to be better than what people expect or think or presume about you as a black man, right? And so like there's these efforts to appease people or to impress them, whatever's going on inside of you that you've internalized, that people have told you you need to be,
yeah.
and now you're home,
Yep.
and you're with people who are like, we don't need any of that from you.
You're right.
We want you, and we want you to feel home.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to accept.
Well, it's hard to accept too, because like you don't know the language, you're learning the culture for the first time. Like that's there's so much happening,
Exactly.
and it's
Exactly.
almost like, did you have to for yourself? Did you have to figure this one out for yourself, or was there someone sort of actively reminding you, no, you can let down here?
Yeah, it was happening. It was happening. It's like, and one of the things that kept being shown to me was like, and you don't believe it anyways. Even when people tell you this, you don't
Oh,
you don't believe that it's actually true. And that's like the bigger thing. Is it's like, um, I don't believe that it's actually true because of my experiences, right? Like people say, hey, you belong here, you can be yourself until you are, and then you make a mistake, and then like people then like come after you, right? And it's like, so there's some truth to that. And the real issue is none of that should matter anyways, right?
hmm.
Whether people are angry with you or not, like you can assume that those things are going to happen. The question is, are you going to choose to be you? You're going to choose to be you always. And that you clearly see that you choosing not to be you isn't making you happy,
Right.
right? And so, like Bwiti, which is the spiritual tradition and walk
Hmm.
that my people follow, that I follow
Hmm.
now, as is like they say that the greatest gift is life,
Hmm.
your life, and so you have to choose how you're gonna use that greatest gift, and it's a gift that you you didn't pay for it, you didn't do anything to earn it or have it, it just is, and so you get to choose whether or not you're gonna be happy
Yeah.
or if you're gonna squander it and be stressed and obsessed with like all of the things that are hurting you in the world. Um,
Yeah.
so it's like it's a hard thing to swallow when you're like, but I'm oppressed. I like live in the United States. Don't you see? Like, and you can still choose to be happy.
Ooh,
And they
man.
say those things straight faced, you know?
Wow.
So, and I believe that.
Yeah.
And I'm
There's
still going to fight for people's liberation,
I,
but
I
and my own liberation,
I
right?
don't know that anyone questions that. No, that notion. You said a lot there though about the greatest gift being life, and it's not really a choice of like of whether or not you're going to be happy or be some kind of emotional, it's whether or not you're going to choose you.
Yeah.
It's like this essence of yourself and not this attempt to be what other people expect you think other people expect you to be or want you to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that. And it's also like some of the things that were shown to me is like I would choose things that will particularly not make me happy to make other people happy,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yes.
like I won't go on vacation because I want to make sure that, my work people are happy with me.
Yes.
And it's like, or my board or this and that. It's like nobody's like necessarily saying this is the truth. It's something that I learned, that I was taught.
Right.
But it's like I went on this trip directly after that to Dominican Republic that, at first I was feeling guilty about because
Mm.
it's like I'm going to Gabon for 2 weeks and then I'm going to go to the Dominican Republic for another 10 days. Like 2 weeks after that, it's like people are going to have all these feelings.
Is he even doing anything?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Right.
about,
I do.
And
Yes.
I'm like, I come back from Gabon and I'm like, screw this. Enjoy my family. I'm going to have fun. And like I got down there and that's exactly what I did. I did not think about work at all.
Yeah, I remember your posts from that period of time, and I've never seen you. I don't think I've ever heard you talk about joy.
Mm,
And when you were writing in all of your captions for on Instagram, you talked about joy. And I found that to be like, it brought a smile to my face because I knew something had shifted for you.
mm,
I mean, obviously it was connected to your trip to Gabon,
yeah,
but you were able in that 10 days, despite what you have that narrative in your mind, like, are people going to think I'm doing my job at all? Or are they worried that I'm like any, you let all that go and just let yourself be there and experience joy.
yeah.
Must have been a pretty new experience for you.
New and not new. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like
Tell me
there was
more.
a time when like one of the things that the medicine showed me was that like I do this a lot where I'll go through a time where I get it. Like I've figured it out. I figured out who I am. I figured out what
Mm.
I'm doing, how I'm gonna be, and I operate that way. You met me when you first met me. You met me at a time when I was at my highest point in that
Yeah.
space.
Yes, definitely.
And then the medicine showed me, then it's like almost like I just put up the middle finger to myself.
Wow. Yes.
And then I just revert back to this other version of myself.
Mm.
And so I do this periodically.
Yeah.
And it's like medicine is like telling me like when are you gonna just choose to just go all the way, be you all the way, right?
It's yeah, like just a reminder. It's as a reminder because I remember you very powerful, and then you just were in the thick of it. It's your first time being as an executive director. Not a whole lot of guidance there is on a number of levels,
Mm,
and you were just in the fight um,
mm,
in an organization that was fledgling at best. And yeah, and so you forget yourself in some way, right? And this sort of like reminds you of who you are.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So we went through this. We went through a pre-ceremony, and we went through a welcome ceremony,
Mm.
right? Which was like, I want to talk about it for a minute because it's just
Me
like,
too. Yeah,
yeah,
you
it's
go.
like all the people from the village came. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's like all these people that are sitting in chairs all the way out the temple. We're sitting in the temple. There's all this fire and dancing and like it's just beautiful. It's like beautiful the way that it looked. No
Mm.
one's wearing shoes where everybody's taking their shoes off. And for listeners, like if you don't know me, right, like taking your shoes off, that's like a part of my like whole life,
Yes.
and it's like everybody in the village, that's what they do during this particular time, this holy moment.
Yeah.
right? And I know that there's like Christians and like other folks from other denominations and faith traditions that can relate to the removing of shoes as well and the sacredness of that.
Yes.
Like that's how I've lived my life, you know?
Yes.
And so it's just like that whole experience. There's a lot of hard things about that experience that I had to learn from
Mm.
that like happened because of like the plant medicine and things like that. I could
Yeah.
talk about it another time.
Yeah. Definitely.
But it's like, we went down into the jungle. We all the men went down into the jungle together and we got naked together and we took these spiritual baths together.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
it's so intense, so powerful,
Wow.
so beautiful, um
Wow.
and like there was like no like space for like homophobia or like
Yes.
men not being able to look at each other. It was like everybody was completely confident in who they were and how they
Wow.
were relating to one another, and people were helping each other. Like, the men of the village were like helping me like to figure out how to do this, and we're both standing there naked, not uncomfortable and not ashamed. um
Wow.
it was intense and incredible and powerful, um
Yeah.
to have that experience and not have to worry about anything, um
No, I don't. I don't know, William.
and neither had I until then.
Yeah.
It was like being a little kid, being a little boy again.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Not being ashamed.
That
You
is powerful. Yes. I don't remember those days.
know.
No, no, for real though, because that gets stolen. That
Yeah.
gets stolen. Um, it got stolen from me at a young age, and I know it does for a lot of people. Some people don't have experiences where that's true, but you talk about vulnerability. I mean, just getting out there and in the forest and just like having nothing to protect you from the elements or just like around other people. Yeah, that's I don't know what that's like. So that's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense, man.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
then the days after that, we had these experiences of, then they took me through a spiritual sauna to cleanse my body of any like unclean spirits that might have attached themselves to me.
Wow.
There's pictures of all of this stuff as well, and
Yes.
they
Yes.
wrap you in these blankets, and and then you put your head in the blanket, and then you're inhaling all of these herbs and the smoke from the herbs and
Wow.
sweating out all these toxins, and they feeding you, and like, you know it's just like every day it's sunny, you're coming out and people smiling at you,
Mm.
genuinely happy that you're there, genuinely excited that you're a part of the community that
Yeah.
they built together.
Ah,
And so it's like
that's
all of those things. Like I love to talk about some of my other experiences, the hard ones, because I
w-
learned a lot of stuff too. But
well then I want to hear about some of those hard experiences. I mean that's you discovered some things.
so there's a couple.
Yeah.
The hardest one was for me was one of the days. So every few nights, we go down and we do this thing called fire talk,
Yeah.
where we're like sitting around a fire together, and the elder and some of the other folks in the village who've been initiated, some of the other providers there who've been initiated, and folks uh, come together and they do these things called fire talks, where they give Bwiti teaching, basically. Bwiti, the study of life itself,
Mm.
the art of knowing is what it's
That's what
called.
it means.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the idea of Bwiti you know, is like trying to or learning to understand things through the thing that God gave us to understand things through, which is our senses.
Mm.
Right. And this is my language around this, is like what has happened to us, especially in the West, but all over, is that we have learned to assess things through our feelings, right? And so that's not actually how we were created to process things for our brain to gather information. Our brain gathers information through our senses.
Mm.
When we start to gather information through our feelings, we can't always trust what's coming in because our feelings are fickle and change at the drop of a moment through perception, through so many different reasons. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
all of that, right?
Yes.
Man, I wish I had understood that at the time when they were talking about it. Because I was still processing everything to my feelings. And
Right.
so there's a night that I go down on the mat and I'd taken a lot of medicine that particular night.
Mm.
I was like, I'm ready. I'm like ready to do this thing.
Yeah.
It was like that time when me and you picked a fight with the devil.
don't, don't remind me,
Good
man.
Lord.
But
So
you felt we felt ready for that. This is what
yeah,
you're saying. You're like, I'm going in.
exactly.
I'm going in.
You know what I'm getting at. I have so many things to say about that though too. That
Yeah.
happened came up during this particular time during my journey right now. I
Yeah.
understand differently, but anyway,
Mm, mm,
so I'm like laid back, and you know, I next thing I know, I'm getting taken to my room. I go to my room because we lay out in the temple for the first part.
mm.
Go get taken to my room. I'm laying down. I'm processing, and all of a sudden, like it was just like something like punched me in the chest, and like I could see uh an image of someone yelling at me,
Mm.
like saying, you're a liar. You're not telling people the whole truth or whatever, and I'm gonna find out basically.
Wow.
And I was just like, all of a sudden, my heart just started racing, and like I was just like, man, and it was trash. The whole day was trash, and so it was like this, like in the center, like where my heart is, it felt like just this like vibration that was like almost hurting. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying? I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, I'm gonna lose my family. It's like the way that it felt. I'm losing everybody that I love.
Wow.
And like I have to like start to live differently. I've been living in ways that isn't me. I've been living in ways that's a lie. I've been lying to people about who I am.
Okay, can I ask a quick question?
Mhm.
Did you internalize that as they're going to find out that I've been lying about who I am and they'll leave me.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was exactly that. It was
Okay.
like this idea of being alone.
Mm. Wow.
And it was just like it was things like you know, I hadn't been like completely attentive to Sakura and Trace. Like I
Mm.
focus on work. I focus on this thing over here. I focus on that thing over here. I'm not focused on them.
Yeah.
It's with my parents, my nephews, it's like they're asking for more attention, more love, more time. And I'm like putting all my focus in a place that like, I love, and like I'm building something. And I'm finding that I keep building things that I end up not belonging to,
Yeah.
and it's like there's these people that want to belong to me and want me to belong to them, and I'm putting them on the back burner trying to get the rest of the world to do it.
Whoa.
And
Whoa.
so it's like I'm lying to myself. I've been lying to myself about like where my priorities should be and what they need to be, and lying to myself about like why I do them, you know?
Mm.
And so there's truth to it. It's like the truth is like I want to make a better life for my family and all these different kinds of things. And that can also be true with the piece that I'm not saying, that I'm not telling the truth about, which is like, and it's and it's to get people to like me,
Yeah.
to feel like I'm worthy, that I matter, that all that stuff.
Yes. Yep.
And so it just came to a head. And so I come, and there's some things that like I just disclosed to Papa Magunda around this, and to another provider that's there, and they talk to me about like this day forward, stop lying,
Mm.
and like you know there are things that like we talked about, and just like don't lie anymore.
Oof. Man. That's it's that simple. Did you feel like it was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna stop.
No, nope. So I ended up going back, and I was like stressed out the rest of the day. And finally, Papa Magunda, he comes up to me like 6:30. He's like, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "Man, feeling horrible." He's like, "Don't worry. At 12 o'clock at night, you'll be back to normal."
Huh.
And he gave me this big hug, that I needed. It was like one of them hugs that you just needed.
Man, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's like, "Don't worry. Everything's gonna be okay. Right?
Mm.
And we're gonna stand with you." And
I wonder how much of that has to do with, the way that we were brought up to think about truth and lies.
mhm.
There's shame around that. There's like yeah, there's a fear around if you lie, what does that mean? What's going to happen? And the word lie in connection with not being your authentic self. There's probably a lot there that's all wrapped up in whatever you were feeling, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah.
exactly. So 12 o'clock. This is what was so powerful. I wanted to say this. So 12 o'clock, I'm laying down. I'm getting ready to fall asleep. I can't fall asleep. It's so hard. They're like, try to get some rest. I'm like, I cannot sleep because I just felt it. And all of a sudden, I was having a vision.
Mm.
And in the vision, I was like, you know, being initiated, which was one of the things I really wanted to happen. It didn't end up happening. We can talk a little bit about that.
Mm.
But I was being initiated in the vision, and in the vision, there was like these cups. And in the cups, there was like this. It was like the iboga bark, and then there was something that resembled like love.
Mm.
And the Padmaganda in the vision was like, "What do you see?" And I was like, "I see um, uh, that the key to the key to initiation, the key to initiation is love
Mm.
and medicine."
Love and medicine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like that is correct. And so then, like all of a sudden, like I felt this vibration in my chest, and in the vision, he walks over and he just reaches in and pulls that light, and then put it inside of himself. And then I felt like the vibration, and then it
Mm.
was gone. It was gone. I didn't feel it anymore, and I felt this warm sensation over my body, and then I went to sleep.
Okay.
And I was like, all I could say was thank you. um, but I learned so much from that, man. I can't tell you how much I learned from that experience,
Well,
And
what did you take that as him taking that light? Like how did you take that?
so I mean, at the time I thought it was all the supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
Now I understand it to be something. I mean, it's supernatural, but I
Yeah.
understand it to be an example of what like. There were things that it's how my brain works,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was looking for his approval. I'm looking for the approval of all these particular people. And so my brain is like trying to set these things up in a way. My soul is trying to set these things up in a way so that I can both learn and and also like take this in, but also see how my brain works. Like, you actually are the person that knows all of this stuff. Like, you know what to do.
Right.
These
Right.
folks are here to help you unlock your mind.
Yeah. Not to
You would
tell.
think that
Yeah.
a community organizer would understand that.
It's always easier when we're doing with other people. So much harder with ourselves, man.
Exactly.
You know it. You talked about not doing the initiation ceremony.
Mhm.
What was that decision like for you? Because I know that you had intention around that. Or so like what made you not go ahead with that?
Yeah, it wasn't my choice.
Yeah.
Mm, I wasn't ready.
Mm.
So there are still things that I had to work on. Uh,
Mm.
that it wasn't like they came to me and said you weren't ready. It just was like it. I never got to the place where I was gonna end up doing that. My mind still needed to detox. My mind still needed to go through some things. It's still, going through some things.
Mm.
But one of the things that like is different about me now is that I've decided. You know, I hadn't decided then. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's so much like there's some things I can't share. You know what I mean? But
Of
like
course. Of course.
it's like the idea is like I needed to decide something. Today I've decided that I'm going to live a life that is joyful, and that I'm going to live a life through my senses, uh,
Mm.
a life that is connected to me being happy
Yes.
100% of the time. And so like that's the decision that I've made. And so
Wow.
that means I have to make choices every moment of every day, and that they
Yeah.
get easier as I get better at it.
Yeah. And that's a life of a particular pattern that you're probably fighting against less than you were months ago, but still striving against in some ways, because there are patterns that have told you that that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So you still have an intention of being initiated. And is there a timeline for that, or is that just like you'll know when you know you're ready?
I mean, I know I'm going back to Gabon in January. I'll be going
Okay.
for 2 months.
Okay.
I'm gonna be becoming a Iboga provider. uh,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
yeah. And like, provide the medicine of my ancestors, I mean, I'm a healer, man.
Yeah, I'm aware.
I'm a
Uh,
healer. So
Um,
like I found a place where I can heal authentically.
and for oh man, there's so much uh, to go towards there because um I don't know how much you'd want to share around this, but I from you grew up Seventh Day Adventist, I grew up evangelical, and while there are differences, there are some strong similarities as well.
All similarities.
um, and I one of the things I've been wrestling with a lot within my conversations among other people who've experienced an exodus from their childhood tradition
Hmm.
is that there's either like complete abandon, like I'm an atheist now. That's what people. It's like I'm done. I hear a lot of that. Um, or it's just like a little switch. It's just like, oh, this tradition was hurting me, so I'm going to try a different one. Eventually, it's just like, oh, I'm done with it all.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I'm not done with spirituality. How can you be done with faith and spirit? And what I hear from you, especially like growing up the way that you did, to now be in this, like to reconnect with what is your ancestral roots and the traditions of your ancestors, is far away from the traditions that we were brought up with, but is still spirituality and still like it's an expression that we wouldn't have expected,
Hmm.
you know. And I love that because it maintains this, like I'm not abandoning this thing because I think spirituality and whatever is stupid, it's or it's ignorant. It's just it wasn't connecting with your soul,
Hmm.
it wasn't right. And that's part of what you were always experiencing in your life is just this, it's giving me some kind of grounding. It's not right though,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, I mean, so much of like, the reasons why so many of us, I'm just gonna say it so people are gonna have their reaction about this. So many of the reasons why many of us and our ancestors became Christian to begin with was a result of violence and conquest.
Yes.
It's like,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
we got to reconcile that. Like people got to, we have to have that conversation. It's like, no, my people probably not would not have been Christian. They probably would have been Bwiti. The reason I know this to be true is because they're still Bwiti today. So like, if I hadn't ended up here and I was there, that's probably would have been the tradition that I would have been and would have been following.
Yeah.
And I'm also appreciative. Like Sakura uses this language that she's still culturally Christian. Like,
Hmm.
there's just cultural things. Like when I get into particularly black church, and like there's that music gets going, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that holy music, y'all, you know what I'm talking about. Right?
Yeah.
There's something that's gonna happen to me, right? When
Right.
people sing certain songs, the nostalgia of like what it meant to me, what it felt like, why I felt the feelings that I felt, none of that was fake. It's not like it wasn't real.
Right. No, absolutely not. That's where it's complicated. There has been a lot of harm done in those traditions, particularly to folks that have were stolen from their land. Yeah,
Yeah.
here we're going to take you from your land, from your people, and now you're going to have to adopt a bastardized version of our religion.
Hmm.
We'll give you a slave Bible that tells you only the things we want you to know.
Exactly.
And now here you go. Now you're with us, and your acceptance is contingent upon your ability to accept that tradition.
Exactly.
You know, and so to reconnect because it is in you, like it was already in you, this Bwiti tradition, right? To reconnect in a real present way with that is so beautiful,
Hmm.
um, and holy, the way that we would probably describe it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm.
In the tradition, they say "base," which means truth.